class, I'm your Professor Joseph. Today we're going to review Chapter 3 in Hurley's book, Informal Fallacies. This will prepare you for your chapter test today, or whenever you're taking it. So in my class, we're using Mindtap, and let me show you in the Mindtap on the Cengage platform. You could simply, if you wanted to do a review along with this video, you could just hit flashcards, and it pretty much goes through every single fallacy. You can, for example, fallacy, appeal to a force, right? You think in your mind, well, what is that? And you flip the card and there's the answer. So you could do this for review as well. Some of you have ordered the book on top of Mindtap, a printout of it. Some of you own the book as well. Some of you are not even in my class and you're listening online and you're in some other professor's class, but you just so happen to be using Hurley. In that case, you have this. At the end of each chapter, just go to the last assignment in the chapter and then scroll down. And each chapter has a summary. So for example, this chapter, every single fallacy that you have, there is a brief definition for each one. It's a really awesome cheat sheet. And again, if you don't have this and you're using my Mindtap, you have those flashcards. Otherwise, you could simply take a picture of this screen in my recording, and there you go. So there's numerous ways to have your little cheat sheets to understand what each fallacy is. If it's an informal versus a formal, there's only a few formal in the very beginning of the chapter. All the rest are informal, meaning it has to do with the content and the meaning going on, not necessarily the structure. That's what informal fallacies are. So here we go. We'll get out of there. Yeah, so that's about it. So we'll start the review. What I will do is I will go through these pretty quickly, but you at home could easily push pause. Think about the answer, struggle through the problem, because some of these are struggles. No shame in that. I mean, it's logic. Unless you've been doing this for a long time, you're like, oh, what is this? What I would encourage you to do is push pause for each question, try to figure it out on your own. Then, click play, hear the answer from me, figure out where you could have improved, go back to that part of the chapter. If you have a cheat sheet, check off, okay, I struggle with this one, I didn't with that one. If you take these steps, you will do well. If you don't prepare and you don't study, you won't do as well. I mean, it's just, bottom line, studying for college. But I prepare this video for you because I think it's really helpful and beneficial. And here we go. So I do not provide this mock study to you. This is a mock exam, not like it'll be exactly like this on your Mindtap or in my class at Mount San Antonio College, or even Cal State San Marcos, where I teach critical thinking, because I use the same text. So if you ask me on my YouTube video, hey, can you give me that mock exam? No. So you just have to listen to the video. But thanks for asking. All right, so let's go to question 1. Okay. Frank Larson argues for strict gun control. It appears that Frank wants to abolish access to guns altogether. But if law-abiding citizens can't own a gun, then they will have no means of defending themselves against criminals. Obviously, Frank's argument is no good. Think about this again, and I'll just say this for this one question. You could push pause right now, try to figure this out on your own, then come back. I won't say that again for the rest of the questions. You can just do that on your own. So here's my advice to you. Try to rule out 2 of them immediately. Try to think to yourself, there's at least 2 that I know is nowhere near close to the answer. And by the way, there's always, well, not always, there are some that just say no fallacy. This is no fallacy. This is just good old information, or there's an argument here, and that's a viable choice. So let's do this. False cause. Red herring. What's a red herring? When you purposely distract the reader, you go into a completely different conversation. It has nothing to do with your argument. Does that look like what it's doing here? Maybe. Does it look like an abusive against the person attack? Ad hominem? No. We could rule that one out. False cause? Doesn't seem like that. We could rule out A and B. Now we're left with C, D, and E. So the answer, straw man. Frank is arguing for stricter gun control. And then this person is coming along saying that Frank wants to ban guns altogether, but that's not what Frank said. Frank said stricter gun control. If somebody else comes along and distorts Frank's argument, that is a straw man. When you distort somebody's argument and they say, I never said that, your distortion of their argument, it could be that when you're distorting it, you could attack it easily. And then you say, oh, I attacked it. It's absurd. I won. And then the other person goes, I never said that. Again, these happen all the time in political debates, all the time. Can you spot them out? Okay, so one is C, straw man. And what you want to do just in life, when somebody's giving you an argument or an opinion or an assertion, you know, sometimes it's good before you attack or critique, you just say, oh, let me, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're saying this, and you repeat it back to them. Sometimes we're so quick, we have such a hair trigger to reply and refute and rebut and to argue against, we forget that maybe we're misrepresenting their argument to begin with. Am I a pro at this? No. I'm 48 years old. It's taken me 30 something years of thinking about practicing, seeking understanding first, right? That way we avoid straw man attacks. Okay. So we call that the principle of charity, by the way, when you give somebody a benefit of the doubt. So anyways, straw man is a very frequent fallacy. Number 2, Dr. Sylvia Newman, the world famous biochemist, says that the widespread use of pesticides poses a serious threat to public health. Therefore, we should take this warning seriously and investigate further the extent of the threat. Dr. Sylvia Newman, the world famous biochemist. Okay, world famous. She's saying something about pesticide, which is a chemical. She's a biochemist. She's saying it's a threat to public health. On top of being a chemist, she's a biochemist, so she understands really what chemicals do to your body. She's warning us to take this seriously of this threat, right? Is that a fallacy? No, no fallacy. There is no fallacy. Why? Because she is an expert in this field. Usually we trust experts in this field. If somebody says to you, just because they're an expert, it doesn't mean they're right. Yes, true. But if somebody's an expert in a specific field and they're telling you that maybe we should take this seriously, maybe you should pause just for a second and go, okay, let's consider that. You don't write them off and say something like, well, just because they're an expert, doesn't matter. There's all kinds of experts out there. I hate to say that some experts in certain fields are actually right about what they're saying. But again, just take a little pause and say, maybe we should consider what they're saying since they're an expert in this field. But if somebody's an expert, let's say they have a PhD in mathematics and they're making an environmental claim about botany, like plants, you might say, you got a PhD in mathematics, not botany. Therefore, I'm not so sure I should think about what you're saying, unless they're, you know, they've got some mathematical theory relating to botany, anyways, you get the point. 3. So again, number 2, no fallacy. 3, United Airlines Flight 863 was late arriving in Houston, and Flight 722 was late getting into LA as was Flight 429. So we have 1, 2, 3 flights getting in late. Apparently, all United airline flights are late these days. So there's 3 examples, and then it's making a claim with all. 3 examples of United Airlines, then it's making a claim about all United Airlines flights. What do you think? Push pause. The answer is hasty generalization, A. You cannot go from a few and make a claim like a sweeping generalization all across the board. That's called a hasty, and that just means it's too quick. To make haste means to speed up something. If somebody, like, okay, for example, we know it's hasty generalization, right? You're taking a very small sample size, you're applying it to the whole, can't do that. What could you do to make this not a hasty generalization? What if I said something like 5,000 United Airline flights were late in the last week? And then I said, probably United Airlines flights are late this week. That would make sense because I've given you 5,000 examples, not 3. Okay. And even then, I can't claim certainly that all of them are going to be late. I could just say probably most United Airlines flights are late these days, because I've given you 5,000 examples. So again, not only am I showing you what the fallacy is, I'm also showing you how to get out of making that fallacy. And this is helpful for your everyday life. If you give somebody a few examples and then you claim that this applies to everyone, you're making a fallacy. You don't want to make a fallacy. You want, critical thinking skills and, good logic. And that's what the purpose of this class and these lectures are all about, is you becoming a better thinker, right? So you might want to think, how much evidence do I need? Well, just a lot more, whatever that looks like, or enough to be persuasive. Number 4, April Bradley's arguments in favor of solar power are hardly worth listening to. After all, look where she graduated from. Northeast Texas State. That's hardly an Ivy League. And look how she's dressed. Yuck. What's happening here? Is it begging the question? Is somebody like concluding something that they're proving in the premise, something like that? Is there a false cause? Maybe we could rule out 2 easy ones. Is there no fallacy at all? It seems like there's a fallacy. So is there a hasty generalization? Are we going like a few to a general, population? Are we making that kind of claim? No. Is it an argument against the person abusive? Yes, argument against the person. So with this kind of fallacy, you need 2 things. You need an argument or a claim that is going to be used, the conclusion of our argument, and then you need somebody attacking your character. You need 2 things. If you just have somebody attacking your character, that is not a fallacy. That's just somebody being a jerk or a dick or, a mean person. So 2 things are required. And we have these 2 things. April Bradley's arguments in favor of solar power are hardly worth listening to. So we know April's making an argument, and then we know this person is attacking her. Those 2 things, boom, argument against the person abusive. Again, if you only have an attack against the person's character and not an argument, they're just being a jerk. Happens all the time, okay? These kind of arguments, they happen in political debate all the time. You get character attacks all the time, okay? It's ugly. And by the way, sometimes in these political debates, and you might be thinking to yourself, who cares about politics, right? You're young, who cares? When you get older, I promise you'll start caring, because politics is all about people having control over your life. I wish I could have an echo effect over your life. It sounds profound. You're like, whoa. I'm not really comfortable with having somebody having power over my life. This happens all the time, whether you're in a county, a state, federal government, a country, people have power over lives all the time. You might be thinking, I kind of want to vote that kind of person in if they're going to have power over my life. Well, one of the reasons people use these fallacies on purpose on a stage is they want to elicit an emotional reaction in you. If they can get you to believe that April Bradley's arguments are lame just by attacking her character, they have won if they've convinced you. If you say, yeah, April kind of is dressed in a yucky manner, and you know what? Who cares about Northeast Texas State, right? If the person were to get you to believe this, they have won. But guess what? They've bypassed your critical thinking. They have got you to believe that April Bradley's arguments are no good on an emotional basis. Remember, in the very first chapter 2 that we went over, they're eliciting an emotional response. And the purpose of logic is to avoid that. Yes, we all have emotional responses. But if we believe something purely on an emotional response and somebody has bypassed our rationality, boo-hoo. You have to think about these things, okay? So that's why somebody might use this on purpose, is to try to get you to believe something. They don't care how you believe it. They just want you to believe it. And sometimes that's how politics works, and it's ugly. So if I know I'm segueing here, I'm sidetracking, but I'm going to make a point. If you get into politics or even public speaking, or hell, for that matter, anything you do, be honest. Don't attack somebody's character. Attack the argument. Say, I don't know about that conclusion. I don't think it follows from these premises. I think if you want to make a conclusion like that, you'd have to give me more evidence instead of, hey, you're freaking ugly. You know, that doesn't get us anywhere. Hey, you went to some lame college. Take that for what you will. This isn't just about me lecturing to you about logic. This is about practical application of logic to your lives, right? Because that's what matters. Like, what does it mean for me, Joseph, to hear you spitting off about informal fallacies all day? Well, if I can get you to think how it applies to your life and you can carry it with you, you'll be better for it. Okay, 5. Barbara lost 15 pounds after taking the new Insta-Thin supplement for 6 weeks. Tiffany has the same metabolism, lifestyle, diet, body age, or body type, age, height, and former weight as Barbara. Therefore, probably Tiffany could lose 15 pounds if she takes Insta-Thin for 6 weeks. Is that a fallacy? There is that option. There's a no fallacy option in there. Barbara, 15 pounds, 6 weeks. Tiffany, kind of same everything, as Barbara. Therefore, probably Tiffany could lose. See how weak the conclusion is? It's not making a strong claim. It's just saying, hey, probably kind of the same thing Tiffany has like Barbara. So how many of you, and you could push pause if you want to think about it, how many of you got no fallacy? You're right. No fallacy. And by the way, I've been on so many diets with my wife. Oh my gosh. And the one that, the one that works the best for me that I hate, I literally have anger problems that I'm on, is the keto diet. I'm not even joking you. I could lose 30 pounds in 3 weeks. No joke. If I eliminate sugars and carbs, just boom, gone, right? 30 pounds. And I do an intermittent fast. I don't eat anything till 12 o'clock, but I can drink coffee. If you want to lose weight, you do a keto, you will lose weight. I promise you. Here's the problem with me. I gain it all back. And I have anger because I love carbs. Seriously. My wife's on the diet and she's super good, right? I'm literally like, can we eat French toast with butter and syrup like all day long? I'm like the devil when it comes to this. I hate the diets, but if you wanted to lose weight, it's hard, but boy, does it come off fast. So anyways, that's just me. I'm a guy. I don't know a lot about diets. I'm not a nutrition buff. That's just my opinion with keto. But the reason I don't like it is because it's not sustainable for me. I got to have carbs, man. I play soccer and I skate and I surf. I got to have energy to do stuff. But some of you, if you're thinking about diets, there's my take on keto for what it's worth. It's just my opinion. I'm not giving you an argument. It's just an opinion. So again, that's no fallacy. 6, whatever you do, never buy a lottery ticket. If you do, soon you'll be betting on horses. Next, it will be slot machines in Vegas, and then blackjack for high stakes poker. In the end, you'll be totally broke. No fallacy. It seems like something's going on wrong here, so we're probably going to rule out B. Are we asking a question at all? No. So B and C are ruled out. False cause. Are we claiming something, but it has nothing to do with that, like a possible cause? Probably not. So we're with A and E. I don't think it's missing the point. I do think it's slippery slope. It is, in fact, slippery slope. A slippery slope, you can recognize it. A slippery slope fallacy, you can recognize it by this. They'll make a claim, then they'll give you a series of events, not an event, not even 2, but like a series, at least 3 or more, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So it starts looking really bad. Therefore, don't do it. So the claim is never buy a lottery ticket, because if you do, all these bad things are going to happen. Now, it's most likely that all these bad things aren't going to happen to you if you bought a lottery ticket. That's the whole point of this. So there's other good arguments for not buying a lottery ticket. This just happens to be not a good one because most likely this doesn't happen to you. So we can see slippery slope fallacies all the time. And the salient feature, or the feature that stands out the most is a highly unlikely chain of events that most likely it's not going to happen to you if you do this, okay? My favorite commercials ever on this, I think it's cable TV. They're years ago. They basically say if you don't have cable TV, then X, Y, Z is going to happen. Like, sorry, A, B, C, D, E, and F is most likely going to happen to you. And they're horrific events and they're hilarious, right? Therefore, buy cable TV. So they're trying to persuade you to buy cable TV, because if you don't, all these things are going to happen to you that are horrifically bad. But again, so that's a pretty, I would say out of all the fallacies in your chapter, there's actually a pretty easy one to spot. 7, every component in this table is made of wood. Therefore, the entire table is made of wood. I know some of you are thinking composition right away. Let me just read that to you. An attribute is incorrectly transferred from the parts to the whole. We're talking about every component. We're talking about the parts. We're talking about the whole. You're thinking parts to whole. Yeah, it's composition. No, it's no fallacy. That's just straight up common sense. Every component in this table is made of wood. Everything in this table is made of wood. Therefore, the entire table is made of wood. Some might call that a tautology, like it's just completely obvious, you know, and it is no fallacy. But just in case you thought about that composition trap, yeah, it looks like a composition fallacy. It's going from parts to the whole, but a composition fallacy is erroneously transferring a property from the parts to the whole. This isn't. This is just, it's telling you about the parts and it's making a claim about the whole, and it's very consistent. So there's no fallacy. Number 8. Mr. President, I would advise you to go along with their plan to use your country as a base of operations for invading Iran. After all, I'm sure you don't want your country bombed back to the Stone Age. Is that person threatening this person? Yeah, sure looks like it, right? Bombed back to the Stone Age? Okay, bro, let's just take a chill pill here. This is just appeal to force, okay? B, appeal to force is another very easy one. It doesn't have to be physical force or bombs. It could be psychological force, financial pressure, like you'll go bankrupt. I'll make you go bankrupt unless you do this. So anyways, 8, appeal to force. 9, Senator Dawson argues in favor of legalizing marijuana, but did you know that the senator has been married 3 times? And his last divorce was a real doozy. His wife went on and on about their sex life. Apparently the senator is no good in bed. Enough about that issue. Shall we move on? So what's the claim being made? Dawson arguing in favor of legalizing marijuana, right? But what is this person doing the argument? What are they doing? They're sidetracking. They're talking about how many times you've been married, divorce, sex life, no good in bed, on and on and on. Completely sidetracking. What is that? That is a red herring fallacy. What is a red herring? Some of you don't know. How many fishers are out there of people that love fishing? If you fish, you might know what a red herring is. It's a smelly fish. So let's say I was running away. This is where the fallacy was named. If theoretically, if somebody broke out of prison and the police were using guard dogs to chase their scent, let's say this person, you know, swam across a river and magically picked up a red herring along the way and got out of the river, you know, and then the dogs were still tracking this person, and the person threw the smelly fish to the left and then the person ran to the right. It would divert the dog's attention away from them running, and the dogs would go seek out the smelly fish. So you're distracting somebody and you're sending the dogs in a different location because of the powerful smell of the fish. That's what you're doing in this red herring fallacy. You're diverting them away from the main argument that Dawson's making in favor of marijuana, and you're talking about X, Y, and Z that have nothing to do with legalizing marijuana, okay? Red herring. We see this all the time in political debate. We also see it all the time in relationships, yes. let's say you and your significant one are talking about something and you're like, I really want to go to the park today. And you're irritating your significant other and they're like, I don't want to go to the park. And when we are talking about the park and then you start talking about things that have nothing to do with the park and you're trying to make an argument against the person goes, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the park and you're talking about all these other things. It could be that your significant other is trying to purposely divert your attention away from the park on purpose. They're giving you a red herring fallacy of why you shouldn't go to the park by giving you things that don't even matter. Again, we can think of 101 examples, but the main essence of this is purposely diverting somebody's attention away from the argument. So in other words, if I were to say, yeah, you know what? He has been married multiple times and you know what? He's not good in bed. Therefore, he shouldn't, we shouldn't legalize marijuana. His argument in favor of that. No, forget that. If I believe that we shouldn't legalize marijuana on other grounds related to legalizing marijuana, like give me some evidence related to that, then we're in the ballpark of analyzing his argument. But if I start believing against his legalizing marijuana for factors that have nothing to do with it, then I've bought into the red herring. And you don't want to do that. Again, the goal is to not have somebody elicit a response from you, bypassing your reason. You want to be able to think rationally about the argument, okay? Again, and I'll say this many times, emotions have their place. We all are emotional beings, right? But when we get emotional, instead of evaluating an argument, we're not talking about shouting matches or getting into a heated debate and that kind of argument. We're talking about premises that support a conclusion type of argument. Again, go back to chapter 1. This is what logic is all about, analyzing the arguments. That's when emotions can take a temporary pause, put them in the back seat and just think rationally, okay, is this evidence good or not? 10, after eating a Big Mac for breakfast, poor Steve had a heart attack and died. The message is clear. Never eat a Big Mac for breakfast. So Steve died, a heart attack and died. Do you think it's because of the Big Mac? And, are we talking about unqualified authority, hasty generalization? Probably not. Is there no fallacy? Something seems wrong with this. This is a false cause. Basically, there's all kinds of factors of why Steve could have died of a heart attack. Unless this would have said, unless it said he choked on the Big Mac. Okay, that is a cause. He died from the Big Mac. But he doesn't say he choked on it. Just said he died. And not only that, but he died like later in the day. Just said after eating a breakfast. We don't know how long after, but he didn't choke on it, so who knows? So false cause. There's all kinds of other causes that could have been a reason for him having a heart attack. So on these next questions now, since I've walked through 10 of them real slow with you, I'm going to kind of go fast now. And I might not even read the questions because me giving you the answers, I might talk about some of them with you. You can go back and do the legwork. Okay, so let's do 11. You can read this to yourself. You can pause. Actually, I'll read them all to you. I'll at least do that part. The ad for the Ajax house cleaning service reads, never clean again. Obviously, you should never hire that service because if you do, your house will never be clean again. This one is amphibole. You know what an amphibole is? I can read it to you. The conclusion depends on an incorrect interpretation of an ambiguous statement made by someone other than the arguer. What does ambiguous mean? At least two possible interpretations. Remember from chapter 1, vagueness is, does the word actually mean that? Like poor, hot, cold, rich? Vague and ambiguity are completely two different things. Ambiguity is, there's at least two possible meanings here. I'm not sure which one. Like, which one do you intend? Because I can go two different ways here, at least two different ways. So if you have at least two different possibilities of interpreting this, it's an amphibole because it deals with ambiguity. And that's one good way to memorize amphibole in your notes. It has everything to do with ambiguity. At least two possible meanings. 12, either you abstain from alcohol completely, or one of these days you'll get arrested for drunk driving. So what will it be? Anytime you see an either or, you have two choices, either A or B. In chapter 1, we talked about this disjunctive syllogism. You have two choices, you eliminate one, then you have the other. That's totally awesome logic, right? But what if I give you two choices and you think, is there a third or a possible fourth or fifth choice? Like, why just two? It seems like you're boxing me in here to two choices, but it could be more. Whenever you feel that way, probably you're right. It is a false dichotomy, meaning I'm only giving you two choices. You must choose one or the other. But if you say, I don't know, Joseph, I think I don't have to abstain from alcohol in order to avoid getting arrested from drunk driving. I think I could drink responsibly and take a taxi home. That'd be a third option, right? Or an Uber, or my friend, or my mom, or my dad. I'm just saying. So you're forced into two choices, but you think there could be at least a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or whatever. Bottom line with this is you can think of a choice that's outside of the two given to you. False dichotomy. Meaning it's false that there's only two options. I can think of more. 13. I know that Harper is a millionaire, but he couldn't have earned that money all by himself, at least not honestly. Harper is a total fool without a shred of business sense, and he wastes every spare nickel on idiotic video games. Just imagine me like really lathering up, hate for Harper, right? It seems like argument against a person abusive, right? And I kind of role played that and made it really like offensive. But what did I tell you that is needed for argument against a person abusive fallacy? Two things. What were they? One, you have to have an abusive tone, right? Or like, this is definitely abusive, right? It's a character attack against Harper. But is there an argument? No, there's no argument. So this is no fallacy. But this is tricky, right? You're thinking, well, there's got to be a fallacy. No, remember on the previous questions, I said this person's just being a jerk or an idiot or a dick or whatever word you want to use. They're not being nice, right? You can do that all day long and not have a fallacy. You're just being mean to somebody. To have a fallacy, you have to have Harper making an argument of some sort and then attack his character and then say, therefore, you shouldn't believe the argument. But again, Harper never made an argument here, so there's no fallacy. Okay. 14. The time has come to outlaw the use of tobacco in all public places. The noxious vapors from burning cigarettes and the stench of smoldering cigars is revolting to say the least. And that nasty brown slime squirting forth from the foul mouths of chewers is enough to turn one's stomach. End this assault on our health and senses this very instant. Send the filthy tobacco hounds back where they came from. Wow. Pause, think about it. And what do you think the fallacy is? Appeal to the people. Correct. And you can look that up if you want more clarity on it. But again, going forth here, I'm going to run through these quickly. And you can pause and think about your answers. And in 15, an instant has no duration, but an hour is composed of instants. Therefore, an hour has no duration. Something's definitely wrong. Is it going from the parts, an instant, to the whole, the hour? I think so. Is it composition? Yes. Again, division goes from the whole to the parts, falsely attributing a property, and composition falsely attributes a property from the parts to the whole. It goes backwards. So division and composition go kind of hand in hand, but they're in reverse order on the way they transfer a property or an attribute. Okay, 16, Irene will certainly live a ripe old age because a palm reader told her that earlier. A palm reader. Let me see. Do you think a palm reader is qualified to tell Irene will live to a ripe old age? Maybe. Some of you might think, dude, I go to palm readers all the time, bro. I got this palm reader down in Santa Monica. Super legit. Quite frankly, it's possible, but highly unlikely that a palm reader is qualified authority to make a claim about your lifespan and health. Some of you might resist, but let's just say, in terms of logic, Hurley's going to make the argument they're unqualified, okay? 17. So once again, 16A, qualified authority. 17. Either Coleridge or Longfellow wrote the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but it certainly wasn't Longfellow, therefore Coleridge wrote it. I'm given two choices. It seems like I'm eliminating one. I have the other one. What is it? Is it a fallacy or no fallacy? No fallacy. That is a disjunctive syllogism. Either or, choice one or two. It's not one, it's two. The conclusion follows, okay? Or sorry, two choices, either Coleridge or Longfellow. It's not two, therefore it's one. Either way, you have two choices, you're eliminating one. Doesn't matter which one you eliminate, as long as you have one left, okay? 18. Performance enhancing drugs are banned from professional sports, but Viagra is a performance enhancing drug. Therefore, Viagra is banned from professional sports. This is equivocation. They're misapplying this. We're not talking about sex here. We're talking about, you know, like sex is not considered a sport. Yeah, anyways, that's just equivocation. Another good way to think of equivocation is let me give you an example. There's two ways that Viagra is being talked about here. One in a sports related way and another one in a sex related way. And therefore, if we give a sex related way and then you apply it to the sports related way, there's a fallacy. So there's at least two possibilities here. It's not quite sure which one you mean, and you're equivocating and go back and forth. Let me give you a really easy understanding. A bank. A bank could be a financial institution. It could also be a river bank. You know, the land adjacent to a river. And let's say my wife says, "Hey, Joseph, did you go to the bank today to pay the bills?" And let's just say in my mind, I thought, "Oh crap, I forgot." But I happened to drive past a riverbank on the way home. So I say, yeah, I went to the river. No, you say, yeah, I went to the bank today. And in your mind, you thought, yeah, I drove past the riverbank. But I know my wife meant bank, financial institutions. So I'm equivocating. I know there's two meanings here. And I'm, in my mind saying I drove past, the bank and she means paying a bill. I know I'm lying my ass off. I don't want to get in trouble. I'm equivocating. Again, this is just a comical example. I have not used this on my wife, but maybe I should. I'm just kidding. So equivocation is you have two possible meanings and you can go back and forth. And this happens a lot in political debate because politicians will say, hold on, you're equivocating. You said here this, and this is the meaning, but then you said here this. Which one is it? Usually when somebody does that, they want specificity. They want more detail and they want to pin somebody down. And oftentimes when one debater asks somebody else for this clarity, this is the magic. You'll hear them say, "Oh, we ran out of time. No further questions. Thank you." Don't do this on purpose. Some person that knows they're guilty of equivocation or some other fallacy and they're challenged on it, they'll say the clock's run out. Can't answer that. Got to go by. Awesome. Don't be that person. When you commit a fallacy, own up to it and say, okay, you're right. This could be taken two ways. Here's what I meant by it. 19. Poor Scooter Libby should never have been sent to jail for lying to grand jury. Scooter is an honorable man. He devoted his whole life to working for his country. One administration after another asked for his help, and Scooter was always there, ready to serve. Scooter deserves a medal, not jail time. This one's appeal to pity. Again, we're talking about the argument that he should have been never sent to jail. And then what we're doing is we're getting you to try to feel sorry for Scooter. But that might not relate to why he should be sent to jail from a grand jury. We're getting you to feel sorry for him. 20. So again, 19, appeal to pity. 20. Failure repair has been a dependable job for most of the past 500 years. Therefore, it should be a dependable job for the next 500. This one is suppressed evidence. Something's being left out. Yeah, okay, it's been a dependable job, but we need more information to make the claim for the next 500 years. Like, what kind of job market are we talking about? What kind of factors? What kind of longevity? How's the marketplace? Are we talking about international, national, county? So we need more detail, and there's evidence and details being suppressed. They're being left out on purpose. So we don't know that this claim follows from that. There's a lot of things missing that could be very significant. And it just so happens that there are suppressed evidence. Suppressed meaning pushed down, kept away. So 20, suppressed evidence. 21. Nobody has ever seen Tyler play football, baseball, or go skiing or swimming, or engage in any other sport. Probably Tyler doesn't engage in sports. So the claim is nobody's ever seen Tyler play any sport at all. So you're not saying certainly Tyler doesn't play, say probably. It is a no fallacy. It sounds like you might be thinking there's a fallacy there, but literally nobody's ever seen Tyler play any sport at all. Most likely you can conclude maybe he doesn't play sports. 22. So example, 21 is just a good case of clear-cut reasoning. Like, you're given evidence and you conclude from the evidence, yeah, maybe Tyler doesn't play sports. For all you know, Tyler's in a wheelchair. Again, we don't know that. Or just Tyler's an artist, or Tyler's a musician, or Tyler's X, Y, and Z, right? That doesn't care about sports. Totally fine. 22. Mr. Gladstone's argument against cuts in Social Security are worthless. As a recipient of Social Security benefits, she would naturally be expected to argue exactly the way she does. So this one is argument against the person circumstantial. She benefits from Social Security, so it seems like she's biased. She doesn't want any cuts in Social Security. And let me just read this to you. Appeal to the person. Yeah, presenting the, oh wait, sorry. Yeah, presenting the argument as predisposed to argue as he or she does, meaning, yeah, like I said, bias, predisposed. We would definitely think that Gladstone wouldn't want cuts because she does in fact receive them. So it seems pretty consistent with that fallacy. 23. Some tunes are oldies and some tunes are oldies and some oldies are classics. Therefore, some tunes are classics. Some tunes are oldies, like the bouncing ball. Some tunes are oldies. Some oldies are classics. Therefore, some tunes are classics. That seems pretty straightforward. But it says this argument contains a formal fallacy. Some tunes are oldies. Some oldies are classics. Therefore, some tunes are classics. Oh, that's right. So it doesn't follow that some tunes are classics. You might be able to get that, but it doesn't necessarily follow. So this was one of those examples in the very beginning of this video. I said there's only a few, maybe a couple questions on your test that are going to deal with a formal fallacy that has to do with a certain structure. All the rest deal with content. This is not dealing with content. This is dealing with structure of an argument. So this is formal. And for review on this, you could simply go back to your Mindtap reading, but I'm just going to quickly go there, fallacies in general. And you will see right up here, all A or B, all C or B, all A or C. Just look at this example and this example up here, and you'll see why it's formal. It has a certain structure to it. But it does seem, you know, that does seem tricky. It does seem like it's possible that can follow, but it says, therefore, some tunes are. Like, it sounds like a very strong claim. And due to that structure, like, I mean, it might be possible, but we can't say with certainty that it is. So formal has to do with the structure. 24, Bob, in most respects, you seem to be a bright guy. So that leads me to ask you, do you intend to continue voting for stupid Republicans? Wow. So we know there's a question here. Is it begging the question? Is it a complex question? You can push pause and think about it. It's a complex question. There's some really good ones that we can think of. Like, hey, Bob, do you intend to stop beating your wife? In one sense, if Bob says, yeah, I'll stop beating her, then he looks really bad, because then you're like, oh my gosh, you beat your wife. And then if he says, no, I'm not going to stop beating her. Oh my gosh, you're going to continue to beat her? So sometimes when somebody asks a complex question, they're literally trying to frame you. They're trying to say, no matter how you answer the question, you'll look bad no matter how you do it. But that's a fallacy. It could be that you've never beat your wife, Bob, but I'm getting the audience to think right away that you're beating your wife. Are you going to stop or not? So when somebody does a complex question, they're framing you. Okay, this is fascinating. Every once in a while, you might hear this come up. It's not too often, but yeah, you can think of a bunch of examples. Hey Jerry, you're going to stop smoking crystal meth? Yeah. Oh, that implies Jerry smokes crystal meth. That looks pretty bad. Now, some people have smoked crystal meth, but let's just say Jerry has never smoked crystal meth. If I ask Jerry that, hey, when are you going to stop smoking crystal meth, Jerry? The audience will instantly believe that he already does. And it could be the case that Jerry's never smoked it. So me asking him that question is framing him. And it's complex because there's two questions. One implies that he is smoking meth and he'll stop. And another one implies that he is smoking meth and he won't stop. Either way, he looks bad no matter how he answers. So I framed him in a bad way. Therefore, I'm committing the fallacy of a complex question when I ask Jerry about his crystal meth habits. What's the problem? The problem is I'm committing a fallacy. Could be that Jerry's never smoked crystal meth. The better question is, hey, Jerry, have you ever smoked crystal meth? Jerry says, no. Oh, okay. 25. Ferguson has directed the college orchestra for the past 8 years. And during that time, 5 women players have gotten pregnant. Therefore, to prevent any more pregnancies, Ferguson should be fired immediately. Okay. So this one, we've already went over with the McDonald's example. This is a false cause. Okay, so because he directed the college orchestra for the past 8 years and during that time, so basically it's saying college orchestra is responsible for women having gotten pregnant, and they have nothing to do with women having gotten pregnant. So it's a false cause. There's another cause, and it's called, it could be X, Y, and Z. A woman slept with another guy, had in vitro fertilization, wanted to get pregnant. All of those have nothing to do with the college orchestra. They're associating a false cause for women getting pregnant. The orchestra has nothing to do with it. Me playing an instrument has nothing to do with me getting pregnant. 26. Steel wool is excellent for cleaning dirty pots and pans. Therefore, it would be a good idea to use steel wool to clean your dirty car. What happens if you use steel wool on your car and your paint job? What happens to your paint? It'll totally come off. Steel wool will take it off. So we're comparing steel wool. We're comparing cleaning dirty pots and pans to cleaning a car. We're comparing two things. We're comparing A to B. A has properties X. Oh, sorry. So the answer is a weak analogy. A weak analogy is when you compare two things and there's not a lot of properties or attributes that can be compared to them. For example, what's the difference between dirty pots and pans? Dirty pots and pans might not be painted like a car, have extra layers of paint. Maybe they do, but most likely not. So comparing a car to doing dishes, there's not enough properties with the car and the dishes that you can compare them to one another. So to make the analogy stronger, you have to compare two things that are very similar. Cars and pots and pans are not similar in the fact that you're going to use steel wool to clean them. They may be similar where they're made of hard substances. Most cars are made of various types of metals and alloys and whatever. And so are pots and pans. You can compare them that way in a metal type of way, but not in a cleaning type of way using steel wool. For that matter, I used to have a Hurley for like over 15 years. And I remember I used very, very fine steel wool to clean my chrome pipes. Oh my gosh, those were the days where my pipes were super shiny, right? And you might think steel wool will scratch chrome. No, it could take off like heat, not scars, but I forget what they're called. I want to say heat stain, but like, or let's say I got off my Hurley and my rubber boot melted onto the pipe. I could actually take really, really fine steel wool without scratching the pipe and take the rubber right off. So in that sense, steel wool can be used to clean Hurley pipes, but not a car, because Hurley pipes don't have paint on them. 27. And that has nothing to do with the fallacy, but that's fine. I just thought I'd throw that in there that I love Hurleys. After spending an entire day fishing, Terry came back with a large minnow. But every minnow is a fish. Therefore, Terry came back with a large fish. Yes. But every minnow is a fish. Therefore, came back with a large fish. Equivocation. It's not necessary that a minnow itself is a large fish. Minnow, in fact, is a very small fish. But you can look how this is being equivocated. Equivocation can happen with a word or a group of words. Let me read equivocation for you. Let me find it. And I'm just looking at my cheat sheet. You can look at your flashcards, or you can look at, the back of the book. The conclusion depends on a shift in the meaning of a word or a phrase. That's pretty much what I said. So 27, equivocation. 28, Connor hasn't a shred of athletic ability. He does well even to breathe. Therefore, he couldn't have swum across Diamond Lake as he claims to have done. After all, the lake is 3 miles across. This one is no fallacy. You're not making fun of him. It sounds like you are when you say he hasn't a shred of athletic ability and he does well even to breathe. Basically, Connor is not the type to do any sort of exercises, and therefore it doesn't seem like he would ever be able to swim across a lake that's 3 miles. I mean, seriously, when's the last time you swam 3 miles? And if I'm talking to you and you're in really good shape, you think you could still swim 3 miles? It's possible that I could do it when I was younger, when I was surfing, because I surf. I don't think now. You have to be in really awesome shape. So anyways, no fallacy. And this person's not making fun of Connor, even though it sounds like it, because when you say hasn't a shred of athletic ability, you can just say Connor has no athletic ability and does well even to breathe. And what this means is just breathing for Connor, that's all you're going to get. You're not going to get any exercises. I guess you could rephrase that so it wouldn't sound like it's making fun of Connor, even though it's not. Some of you might disagree, but in any case, there's no fallacy. 29, it's good to exercise 30 minutes per day because it rejuvenates your body. And we know it rejuvenates your body because people who exercise live longer than those who don't. And we know they live longer because people who exercise feel better. And this is true because it's good to exercise 30 minutes a day. We start off with a claim, right? A premise, but that's what we're trying to prove at the end. So we're begging the question. The very thing we're trying to prove is stated in a premise. So you can look at that part. There's at least three different ways you can beg a premise. They actually have different names. But you can look back to that section. Let's see if I can get here in my cheat sheet. You can leave out a key premise, you can reinstate the conclusion, or you can reason in a circle. Those are the three ways, but you're reinstating the premise right here in the conclusion that you did in the premise. So this is a circle and begging the question. So there you go. 30, practically all the students in Professor Kane's English class copy their term papers from the internet. Therefore, since you're in that class, you should do this. This is appeal to the people. A good way to appeal to the people, another example is say, I love Game of Thrones. It's my favorite movie series on HBO. Everybody watches it. You should too. I'm appealing to everybody. That's an appeal to the people fallacy. It doesn't mean that since everybody watches it, it's actually good, you know, that you should watch it. And if I wanted to take that fallacy and turn it into an argument, I might say, hey, there's a lot of people watching it. It's won Academy Awards. It's got a really, really cool plot. And the filming is just it's not cheap. They're using a lot of money, millions of dollars that are dumping into this, you know, film. So in that sense, I think you should watch it. I think it's really good. That is an argument because I've given you three reasons. 31, if a piece of jewelry is ugly, then it won't sell. Therefore, a piece of jewelry sells, then it isn't ugly. What do you think for this one? There's no fallacy. It looks like somebody's arguing in a circle, but you're not. When you go to a jewelry store, it's true. Like if something's pretty ugly, nobody's really going to want to buy it. Like, for example, I was in the mall the other day, Escondido Mall, down in San Diego County, and I went, you know, I was walking by the Swarovski crystals. Have you ever seen those stores? There ain't no ugly crystals in that store. They're like, wow, they're just glimmering brilliantly, and you're just like, they're made of crystal, and they look pleasing to the eye. They're not ugly. So there you go. That's just straightforward thinking there. No fallacy. 32, America is a wealthy nation. Therefore, every American must be wealthy. So we're talking about the whole, a nation, and we're attributing wealthiness to every citizen in the nation. We're going from the whole to the parts. We're transferring the property of wealthiness. Are we committing a fallacy? Yes. The division fallacy. We're erroneously transferring wealthiness from a nation to the individual. It doesn't matter that America is a wealthy nation. We have all kinds of broke people in America. Many years, I was a student. I just finished being a student 2 weeks ago. I just finally finished my doctorate. But I remember, and some of you don't know this, I went to Mount Sac from 94 to 99. For a couple of those years, I was totally broke. I mean, I was waiting tables at the Olive Garden and Mimi's Cafe, but I was renting rooms, driving a beater car. I look back and laugh. Anyways, we're sidetracking, but the point of this is, like I said, and this goes with composition as well. When you go from a parts to the whole or the whole to the parts here, you're erroneously transferring a property or attribute that you should or that you cannot transfer. What's the property or attribute? Here, wealthiness. And that's it. And again, I'll say this over and over, division and composition go hand in hand. One goes from the parts to the whole, one goes from the whole to the parts, as long as you're clear on which one's doing what. In fact, I'll just read that again. Composition, an attribute is incorrectly transferred from the parts to the whole. And division, an attribute is incorrectly transferred from the whole to the parts. And this one happened to be division because we started with the whole. What's the whole? The nation. What's the parts? Me and you, every American, right? And if some of you are watching this video online and you're not in America, I apologize. I'm assuming you're in America. But if you're not, you get it. Like we could substitute America and we could put in England, Germany, Africa, we could put in any country or nation in there. It still runs the same. We're erroneously transferring the property of wealthiness. 33. The speed limit in the neighborhood is 25 miles per hour. Therefore, it was illegal for that ambulance to drive through here at 50 miles per hour. Does it seem like a fallacy? Fallacy of accident. So let's see here. Oh, that's right. That's right. So let me read fallacy. I was thinking we were dealing with a car. I'm like, what? Oh, I forgot it said ambulance. Yeah. So my mind was already wanting me to think that it wasn't a fallacy, but it is a fallacy because this is a general rule and it's applied to a specific case that it should not be applied to. What's the general rule? Hey, everybody's got to drive 25 miles per hour. There's a very specific instance where that rule is broken, but we allow for that. We allow for ambulances, fire trucks, police cars, on and on. So yes, and we can see all kinds of different examples like this, but it's a general rule that can be broken on purpose, and it's legal to do it. But notice the claim here, it was illegal for that ambulance to drive through. No, we're false applying this instance to the general rule. We're false applying, saying that it's illegal. It's not illegal. I've seen, again, numerous examples of these people have authority medically, or the fire station has the authority to run through stop signs and stoplights to stop fires, and the police have the authority to go on the side of the road through stoplights, anything they want, pretty much to save lives. And that's the bigger picture here, is there's nothing illegal about them doing it. So anyways, that's the fallacy of accident. I'm trying to find it in the book so I can give you the exact, a general rule is applied to a specific case in that it was not intended to cover. And I basically said that already. Okay. So 34, in a random sample of 200 students from Northern State University, 150 said that they own a smartphone. Therefore, probably at least 50 of the students in Northern State own a smartphone. So we have 200. 150 said they own a phone. It says probably at least half the students own a phone or own a smartphone. Oh, sorry. So 100. So what's half of 200? 100, right? It says 150 own a smartphone. You know that that's at least half, right? So there's no fallacy here. Wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, wrong question. It popped up E, and I think it was from a previous question. So yeah, no fallacy. That's just straightforward reasoning. You have 150 that own a smartphone. Half of 200 is 100. 150 is more than 100. We already know more than half have a smartphone. So when we say probably at least 50% have it, yeah, that goes without saying. Like, that's just very straightforward reasoning there. And thank you for hanging in this far. We only got 6 more left, or 5 more left. Here we go. The cup of coffee contains this cup of coffee contains caffeine. Therefore, every spoonful of it contains caffeine. Are we falsely attributing a property from the whole, which is the cup, to every spoonful? No, we're literally saying, hey, this cup contains caffeine. And I'm not a PhD chemist, but I'm pretty sure every spoonful in that cup contains caffeine. Instead of, oh, this spoonful doesn't contain caffeine, but the rest does. That just seems crazy making. So again, straightforward reasoning. And what's the purpose of this? Throughout this chapter test, you're going to be given questions that there is no erroneous thinking. There's no fallacy. There's no problem in the content or the structure. It's just straightforward, good thinking, right? The purpose is to get you to understand what a fallacy is, how to identify it, how to name it, and how to not do it. It's also to get you to realize there is good critical thinking, and we can differentiate between one versus the other. Like, okay, this is good, there's no fallacy, this is a fallacy, and this is what it is. When you practice this enough times, you're thinking, oh, okay. And then I guess the reason we do this is because some things are very complicated, and we're having to listen to somebody talk and present on and on and on. And it might be that sometimes it's hard to figure out, are you actually making an argument? Like, what are you doing? Are you making an argument, an opinion, a fallacy? So it requires time and patience analyzing what somebody's saying. But the more you do it, the more you critically reflect, the easier it is. Again, and I'll say this over and over, the best way to look for fallacies is listen to a political debate. I promise you, there's one or more in every single debate you hear that's very big politically, like presidential elections, governors, people that are competing against each other for very high positions of power. But you don't have to. You could simply listen to this lecture and study Hurley and get all you need out of fallacies to be able to identify them. 36, stem cell research is immoral because anything that involves killing innocent human beings is immoral. So this is begging the question, because you're saying it's immoral, right? Because anything that involves killing human beings, but there's an additional premise that's missing, or a piece of evidence. We don't know from here that stem cell research is killing human beings. We're just saying it's immoral because anything that involves killing human beings is immoral. But you need an extra premise that says stem cell research literally kills human beings, or it literally kills innocent human beings. We don't have that. What's begging the question? It just means, hey, I can ask a question of this, and that question that I ask has to be asked, or else I cannot conclude that stem cell research is immoral. Something is missing. And that begs the question, meaning I'm begging you, please just answer this one simple question. If you can't do it, then I can't conclude this. It's fallacious. It has a fallacy. So that's what begging the question means. 37. If you pay him $200 up front, Freddie promises to paint your garage, but you'd be crazy to pay him anything up front because Freddie lies all the time, and every dime he gets his hands on, he uses to feed his methamphetamine habit. Whoa. So if you pay him up front, let's analyze this. And you can push pause and think about this. So if you pay him $200 up front, he promises to paint your garage, but you're okay. So it looks like the person's making fun of Freddie, right? Looks like he's attacking him, talking about a methamphetamine habit. Every dime he gets, he spends on this. You're going to be crazy to pay him anything up front. It sounds like it's an argument against the person abusive, right? It sounds like it, right? But what did I tell you is needed for this fallacy? You have to have two things. One is what we have. We have an attack against Freddie. But what's the second thing we're missing? We're missing an argument that Freddie makes. Freddie's not making any argument here. This person's just talking about loaning Freddie money up front. So there's no fallacy. Again, this is the person attacking Frank or Freddie just being a jerk or being mean. Okay? No fallacy. In order to have a fallacy, you have to have an argument and an attack against them abusively in order to have this specific fallacy called argument. And by the way, the argument against the person abusive is also known as the ad hominem attack, and that's in Hurley as well. 38. So once again, I say that because there's two different ways you can name this fallacy. 38, Carol's arguments against abortion aren't worth a hoot. I have it on good evidence that Carol got an abortion herself after her high school sweetheart got her pregnant. So this is a tu-ku-kwe fallacy. This is what you would call a hypocritical argument. Let me read this to you. By presenting the opponent as a hypocrite. That's just straightforward. Meaning they say one thing and they do another. Carol's arguments against abortion aren't a hoot. She's making the argument that people should not get an abortion, but then she herself got an abortion. Now you may say, yeah, that is a tu-ku-kwe, you're being a hypocrite. But it could be that. I mean, this is possible. For now, this is a fallacy, right? But what if Carol got an abortion when she was 16 and So when somebody says, yeah, I have it on good evidence, she got an abortion. Yeah, that was when she was 16. She's really felt horrified at getting it. And now she's 38 and she's arguing that, you know, other women should get an abortion. That would not be a tu quoque hypocritical. You might say the person's changed their view, but we don't know that here. We don't, you know, we're assuming that this is shortly after she got an abortion. And this argument is not making the argument that one should or should not get an abortion. This is making the argument that there is a tu quoque fallacy going on here, and that Carol is in fact a hypocrite, right? I'm just giving you, because I know some of you are thinking beyond this. You're saying, well, wait a minute. I'm just saying somebody can change their view and not be a hypocrite. So if somebody says, hey, Carol, you're a hypocrite because you just had an abortion, that actually might work, right? Because then the temporal time frame, you know, the temporal aspect is you just got one. But then let's run it this way. Let's say, hey, Carol, you're a hypocrite. You got an abortion. Carol's like, that was 30 to 40 years ago. I'm not a hypocrite. Yeah, it may seem like I'm a hypocrite, but I've changed my position on this. Let's say if she did change her position. Or let's say she's arguing for abortion, and then she didn't have an abortion herself and adopted a child, or I don't know. You can run the argument both different ways. The bottom line with this is she a hypocrite or not? And I'm trying to say, in this sense, yeah, it could be looked at as a hypocrite if she had one close. But there's another instance in which maybe she's not a hypocrite. That's just for you deeper thinkers, thinking above and beyond that fallacy. All right. 39. Most of the residents of the City Heights neighborhood are illiterate. Therefore, it would be a good idea to close City Heights Library. After all, nobody uses it. Oh, something seems wrong here. This is missing the point. It doesn't follow. Okay, so most of the residents are illiterate. That's not making fun of them. It's just an objective. Hey, they can't read. Therefore, it would be a good idea to close City Heights Library. No. That's missing the point. Maybe they can't read because they haven't been taught, or they don't have good instruction. That might be separate from a library that's composed of books that they could go check out to read. That presupposes that they can already read. So it's missing the point. The point is that there's a problem with illiteracy and we have to fix it, but it might not actually have to do with the library. It might have to do with other factors. Maybe there's something going on. You know, maybe I don't know, maybe there's union strikes and they've been going on for so long. Maybe, hey, maybe they just came off a pandemic and a lot of teachers got laid off and we're doing Zoom meetings. And I'm just giving you a wild example. Most of the people that I know these days are literate and they want to be. And if you're not, that's a whole separate situation. But in terms of this, it's a fallacy. It's missing the point. 40. Nobody has ever, and my whole point with this is most of the people that I know are illiterate. Let's just say you're not. Let's just say you don't know how to read. Most of the people around the world, they want to read because there's power in reading, because you can get knowledge and you can, in fact, I mean, I used to love reading fantasies when I was younger. So I'm not harboring anything against people that might be illiterate. I'm just saying most people don't want to remain that way. If they have a choice, they'd rather learn how to read. 40. Oh, so once again, the fallacy is missing the point. 40. Nobody's ever proved that there is intelligent life outside the solar system. Therefore, these efforts to communicate with extraterrestrial are ridiculous. Nobody has ever proved it. Therefore, it's ridiculous to continue on. This is appeal to ignorance. It doesn't follow that, hey, just because nobody's ever proved that intelligence exists out there, it doesn't follow that it doesn't exist. They could exist. Maybe we find them tomorrow. All that we know is nobody's ever proved it yet, but it's possible that they could in the future. So what the person's doing is giving you a conclusion, you know, after the therefore, and they're saying, look, we should just end all this garbage. They're appealing to ignorance. And the ignorance is we just don't know. But that's fallacious. It could be that, yeah, we don't know. We haven't contacted them yet, but it could be that we do in the future, okay? So you're making a claim about something erroneously based upon the fact that we don't know, but we could know. So once again, appeal to ignorance. Now this was a long mini lecture, not lecture, but review, but it's worth it because again, you could pause this, you could listen to it over and over and over. I basically covered every fallacy in there. If I didn't, you can look in the book. I've covered most of them. And the other thing about your test is you're not really going to get the same fallacy over and over. There's at least 30 something fallacies and you're going to probably get one, maybe, maybe there's odds that you get the same fallacy a couple times, but usually you're just going to have fallacy once, meaning you're not going to get red herring fallacy 3 or 4 times. You're probably going to get it once, and you're probably going to get 1 straw man, but it's possible that on your test you can get 2 straw man or 2 red herrings, just not likely. Okay. So that's it. Again, Mindtap, once again, you have the flashcards, and if you had the book and you got it extra printed out, you can go to your book at the very end. And what did I tell you is at the very end of the chapter, if you got the book, that little review section where you have every single fallacy and it breaks it down for you real simply. These are wonderful cheat sheets. And let's say you're not taking my class, you don't have Mindtap, but you have the book, just go to the end of the chapter. Anyways, with that being said, I hope that you do well in your exams. And if you're not taking a test and this is just for your understanding of fallacies, I hope you enjoyed these mini lecture on fallacies. And as always, if you have any questions, just reach out to me.